I've never had a game from your childhood that you just cared less and less about over the years. Probably, but Kirby Squeak Squad is that game for me. It's not that I grew a sudden disdain for it or anything, I just never felt the need to play it again as time went on. Maybe it was because I was low-key obsessed with it at one point. I must have played it like 20 or 30 times back then. Whenever I was bored, Squeak Squad was just that game that I felt like going for another round with. So it's surreal to me that my once favorite Kirby game slowly became the one everyone likes to rag on. I don't think Squeak Squad is generally perceived as bad, just noticeably not as good as the other games, especially compared to what came after. While I still need to play Return to Dreamland, how is a remaster coming out just as I'm playing through these games? Triple Deluxe and Robobot are my favorites now, so yeah, Squeak Squad was somehow sandwiched between a unique take on Kirby with Amazing Mirror and the best hot streak the series has ever had. It's pretty easy to forget about a standard game like Squeak Squad in hindsight, but given how it was my favorite game in the series until Triple Deluxe, I'm really curious as to what I'll think of it now. I haven't touched the game in years, so I was actually really looking forward to replaying this one, along with getting all 3 save files at 100%. Yes, that is a sentence I just said. This is a thing that I actually did. Well, let's start off with the story. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so one day, Kirby's just sitting there trying to eat some cake when all of a sudden, it's stolen. So he goes on a trek to kick King Dedede's ass to get it back, but it was actually stolen by the Squeaks, a band of thieves that are all mice. So, Kirby chases them down and endlessly kicks their asses into submission until he finds their hideout and kicks their leader's ass. Just as our puffy hero is about to achieve his goal, none other than Meta Knight swoops in out of nowhere and steals the cake before Kirby can properly enjoy it. So then Kirby defeats Meta Knight in sword-to-sword combat. Probably. Like, you don't actually have to this time, but like you can. And is about to claim his prize when the Squeaks swoop back in and do what they do best and steal the cake. All seem lost for our pink friend until, upon further inspection, the chest containing the cake did not contain cake and instead held a demon that then possessed Roach and he flew away into space. So Kirby kicks Roach's ass again, but slightly stronger this time, then kicks the ass of a star with a giant eyeball. Wait, does it even have an ass? While pondering this question, Kirby finally gets his cake and everything goes back to normal. Yeah, that's it. That's the plot. I made none of that up. Not even the part where the chest had a demon inside of it. That is exactly what happens, and it's amazing for all the wrong reasons. Kirby doesn't usually have much of a story, but Squeak Squad is infamous for carrying even less than usual. When someone tells you that the average story in a Kirby game is him going on a homicidal rampage to get a slice of cake, Squeak Squad is the game they're referring to. At least it has these cool cutscenes on occasion. I always like the more comic book style of them. They really could have done without the text, though. There's too much of it, they stay on screen for too long, and they tell you nothing. You could remove all of it and still understand what's happening. Aside from maybe the getting possessed by a demon part, but you can skip them, so it's not too big of a deal. The gameplay this time is about what you'd expect from Kirby by now. Squeak Squad's essentially just taking the foundation from Nightmare in Dreamland and Amazing Mirror and just adding on top of it some more. Most abilities even have multiple attacks now, albeit not to the extent of Superstar. So yeah, the gameplay is pretty similar to Amazing Mirror again, but with a linear structure this time and an actual health bar, and even using a lot of the same assets. Granted, this isn't bad on paper. Asset reuse is really common in video games, especially in a case like this. Amazing Mirror still looks good, even as a DS game. If it ain't broke, why fix it? But it's also a bit of a detriment in Squeak Squad's case. Yeah, it still looks good, but it also looks exactly the same as the last 2 games, and it also has the same music and basically all the same abilities. I mean, why else would Throw still be here? I should clarify that there are new abilities in music, but compared to the other games, Squeak Squad feels super samey. All the reused sprites and music rob the game of any kind of identity. Now, the new sprites and music are good, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to appreciate any of it because of how much is clearly reused from the GBA games. And I should reiterate that asset reuse is fine. It can even be a positive if done right, like Majora's Mask. But Squeak Squad went a bit overboard. You run around in environments that look similar to last time and are usually listening to the same music as before. If you play Nightmare in Dreamland and Amazing Mirror, Squeak Squad's presentation is really underwhelming. It's pretty easy to forget this is a DS game. The bottom screen is barely used at all. But I won't complain about that because it makes it easier to record. That's such a weird thing with DS games. If both screens aren't properly used, it's technically a complaint, but I don't really care either way. What else is weird is that despite how underwhelming Squeak Squad is as a game, its structure is immaculate. And no, I'm not joking. You go from linear stage to linear stage, and each one has up to 3 chests that you can find. Collect every chest, and congratulations, you just 100% of the game. Sound familiar? Because it's what every main Kirby game does from now on. That structure that everyone's used to actually started in Squeak Squad. The controls and abilities feel a lot more like Superstar, too. Everyone usually points to Return to Dreamland for giving the series a modern makeover, but no, it actually started here in Squeak Squad. It laid the groundwork for modern Kirby, and it doesn't get any credit for it. Granted, it's the bare minimum of that kind of game here, but it was a massive step in the right direction. There's no gimmicks, Kirby's not nerfed for some reason, and even plays closer to Superstar. Back then, this was as close to a straight Kirby game as you could get, which was really needed. Kirby used to have a bad habit of reinventing itself constantly and not building on top of what was already there. It didn't know what it wanted to be. Didn't want to have animal buddies, didn't want to have a bunch of smaller games put together into one game, or didn't want to be non-linear all of a sudden. It made for good variety, but the quality varied. They were all good games, but you can tell that a lot more effort was put into Superstar. They figured out a great core gameplay style and then pretended that it didn't exist. I feel they're on the right track structure-wise, the crystal shards, but how cryptic they were to collect and that you needed to collect all of them for the true ending just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Squeak Squad feels like the middle ground between all of Kirby's ideas up to this point. While still not as deep as Superstar, the general gameplay is the closest it's ever been to it, with most abilities having multiple attacks, and the chests are mostly optional while straightforward to find. The only exception are these glowing chests that are almost impossible to miss. I really don't know why they made them required. I don't think I've ever missed any of them. Looking back on this, I can see why I like Squeak Squad so much as a kid. It finally found a good gameplay style for the series that works. Kirby was finally learning from his past instead of starting from scratch with every new game. May have taken like 8 main entries to finally figure that out, but better late than never. Which is kind of a shame, because if Squeak Squad had more interesting level design, it really could have been something more fondly remembered. This game has some of the most bland levels in the series. I don't know how to describe it. There aren't any levels that stick out as bad, but there aren't any that stick out as particularly good. Like, if you play a good stage, you just be like, whoa, that was sick at the end of it. Nothing even remotely close to that happens in this game. At best, it's like, okay, I enjoyed that. The only way to really describe the average Squeak Squad level is you walk down a linear path and do things you normally do in a Kirby game. That's not very descriptive, that's what this game is. If you've played Nightmare in Dreamland or Superstar, you've already seen almost everything in this game. There's nothing like, I love the part where you fight Meta Knight and have to escape from a sinking skyship, or having to kill Metroids was really cool. The most interesting the game ever gets level design wise is you have to beat a squeak in a race toward a big chest. This is a very common occurrence. The game also has this annoying reliance on pick-a-path levels, like, oh ho ho, which way could the chest possibly be? You pick the left door instead of the right? Well, guess you gotta restart the level now. The levels are short enough to where it's not annoying, but come on, this is just unnecessary. I feel like I'm really grasping for straws when describing the levels in this game, but that's the thing. There's nothing particularly wrong with level design, but there isn't anything particularly noteworthy either. There isn't anything like, dude, there's a level where you paint a giant moai head. At most, there's a few levels where you optionally dig through some dirt with a new animal ability to get a chest. Or the part where you have to use wheel down a linear corridor to get a chest. Riveting. It's mostly stuff like that. Squeak Squad's level design just feels really phoned in. It doesn't help that the bosses are complete jokes. They have so little health that they die before they really have a chance to put up a foot, especially with Tornado. I don't know what it is about Tornado in this game. It does a ton of damage and you're completely invincible while it's active. You don't have to play the game. You really don't. The easy bosses are especially noticeable whenever you go up against one of the Squeaks. There's 3 of them that try and take the big chest before you, which is a cool idea on paper, but 95% of the time you just run away and completely ignore all the enemies. There's no threat, challenge, tension, anything. Even when you do finally have to fight one of these guys, they get knocked back after already hitting you to them, so it's really easy to just stun lock them so hard it gives Sport Commander little nightmares. When Wispy Woods puts up a better fight than you, that's just sad. And he's not even in this game, which just feels illegal. The only major boss that's kinda hard is Krakow, but that's only because there's a bottomless pit below you. Even the weirdo Demon Star barely puts up a foot. They even give you a maximum tomato bubble right before it, but you really don't need it. Normally I wouldn't really care about the difficulty because it's Kirby, but I beat the boss rush without even trying. That's just, wow. You only get 1 tomato, but that's all you need. Just use Tornado and you're golden. You don't really have to play the game. You know, I haven't actually talked about the new abilities this time. They're fine. Magician's like magic from Amazing Mirror, but an actual ability instead of a randomized whatever the hell it was. You basically do magic tricks that do damage. It's a cool idea, but it's hard to aim, not very practical, and it's rare, so it kinda sucks. I actually really like Animal. You can do this slash that does decent damage, or do this drill attack that you can unlock later. But its main use is these dirt sections that you can dig through. Mostly just to get a chest, but hey, it's cool. I just wish it got more use. If it had more moves, Animal would be a really fun ability. The drill move in particular just feels really good to use. It's just that if there's no dirt, I don't have much reason to use it over something like Sword or Cutter that have more versatility and more range. The other new ability is Bubble, which gives you a bubble wand to turn enemies into bubbles. Squeak Squad has this inventory system where you can have up to 5 bubbles on the bottom screen and use them by touching them. They're usually abilities, but you can also get food items, and by combining abilities, it rolls a random one like if you swallow 2 enemies at once. If you combine 2 food items, you get a better food item. There's also these small Kirbys that you can grab, and if you collect 3 of them, you get an extra life. Cool, I guess, but needing to use up one of your slots for this is pointless. You have more than enough lives just playing the game normally. Because the issue with this system are the collectibles. For some godforsaken reason, each chest takes up an inventory slot. So despite having 5 slots, it's really only 2. Like, it's really dumb, yeah, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. If anything, you can always have 1 or 2 decent abilities in reserve, so that's nice. Inventory management can get annoying, though. You have to move a bubble to the top of the touchscreen and spit it out to get rid of it. So you have to awkwardly do this whenever you find a chest, which just gets worse when you're trying to steal a big one. It's not as bad on an actual DS, but it's still awkward. Ironically, this is the main reason why I don't like the bubble ability. You get a bunch of abilities to stock up on, but it's harder to take advantage of it when you have to throw so much of it away. As for what's actually in these chests, most of them are, again, fine, I guess. Puzzle pieces for some nice artwork, music for the sound test, and these things called ability scrolls. Abilities in this game can actually be upgraded, and you get a new move from them. It's cool on paper, but it loses its luster with how uninteresting it is most of the time. Like how Fighter gets a bigger aura sphere, or Fire and Ice can now aim up or down. Like, what's the point of this? Not to mention how some abilities just have straight upgrades instead, like Cut and Beam. They get bigger hitboxes and do more damage. I'm not gonna complain about this, but I really don't see the point. Probably the worst one is Animal, just because all it can really do is this annoying grapple move, which is a basic slash beforehand. I question why Animal just didn't have this drill move from the start. Its usability is really nerfed without it. Sword and Bomb are by far the weirdest scrolls, because instead of a new move, they gave the ability to fuse with Fire, Ice, or Spark if you combine them on the touchscreen, except Fire Bomb, they're not cool enough. So you not only need 2 specific ability bubbles to use this in the first place, but you also need to decipher what the move description even means. I didn't get the hint for what this meant as a kid, and I didn't know you can combine bubbles in the first place, so I had no reason to believe that you could do this. And when I accidentally figured it out, there wasn't much reason to use it anyway. It's cool that this is in the game, it's just kinda like, why? Why go out of my way for this when they do reliable enough damage on their own? I think the elemental sword and bombs do a little more damage, but come on, just use Tornado instead. The only time you can really access this is with the ability room anyway. It's more of a neat extra than anything else. But even more of a neat extra is an unlockable ability, Ghost. You'll get pieces of this ghost medal throughout the game. When you get all of them, certain mini-bosses get replaced with a ghost mini-boss, letting you get the ability to possess enemies. On the one hand, this ability is totally useless, but it's actually really cool how much effort they went through to let you possess most regular enemies. I just question why you have to go so out of your way to unlock it. Like, the earliest you can get this is the second to last level in the game. I get unlocking the ability room that late, but this? Why? It's just something you'll mess around with for 5 minutes and get bored. You know, between this, Boo Mario, and Ghost Zelda, I don't know what it was with Nintendo and turning the most iconic characters into ghosts around this time. It was cool, I'd be down to kill off more of them. The only thing left to really talk about are the random-ass extras. There's the pathetically easy boss rush that I mentioned before, and the extra mode that's just a speedrun mode. It's neat, but definitely not for me. I don't think you even get anything for finishing it. The sub-games aren't half bad, though. Speedy tea time is quick draw, but with cake. You tap the cake to score points while the bombs stun you for the next round. It's kind of fun, but easy. Especially when the AI outright refuses to play the game. Like, look at this. This was the highest difficulty. Smash Rider lets you slide on the touchscreen to ride around and smash enemies off the stage. Bad phrasing aside, it's fine. Not much to say as usual. But I have even less to say about Treasure Shot because it's not only fine, once again, but playing it with a mouse is basically impossible. You have to swipe to aim at food, and if you hit him enough, you get points. I really can't play this one on an emulator. Not that it matters. I doubt I'd care about it even if I did play it properly. Speaking of emulators though, I usually use Melon DS nowadays because it tends to work better for me and has much nicer upscaling. But after about 10 minutes, Squeak Squad looked like this, so I used this movement instead. I was shocked to find out that it recently had its first update in 7 years. That's really weird. I guess you don't need an outdated fork to upscale games anymore, but Melon DS still performs a lot better. Again, none of this matters for the game itself. It's just a weird experience I had trying to record it. Anyway, Kirby Squeak Squad was a very whelming game. Actually trying to describe it as the most bizarre thing. While playing, there isn't a lot that I actively dislike, but there isn't much to really talk about either. It's not good enough to gush about, it's not bad enough to make fun of, it's not weird enough to be charming. This is like the most room temperature neutral game I've ever played, which feels so weird to me because I loved it as a kid, but there isn't much reason to really come back to Squeak Squad nowadays. If you want a Kirby game like Squeak Squad, then Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe, and Planet Robobot are miles better. I don't want to be that guy that makes a video about revisiting a game in their childhood and ends up not being as good as they remember. This one is kind of overdone, and 2, I actually enjoyed coming back to Squeak Squad, despite how indifferent I've sounded. It set up the groundwork for much better games, which I can appreciate, but on its own, it just kind of exists. Not bad, not great, just there. If you held me at gunpoint and forced me to play it, I wouldn't complain, but I'd rather just play something else, you know? And it's a shame, because if the game had some more interesting level design, it would have been a cool game to look back on. Squeak Squad is essentially the first modern Kirby game. It laid out the foundation for a much better adventure, but I just couldn't do anything with it.